Hello, party people, and welcome back to News and Views right here on the Flick and Reel channel, your home for your news, reviews, and weekly discourse. My name is Anthony Lopez, and on my right, on the right-hand side of the screen, it's Scott Fox.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Yo.
We are excited to tell you about things pertaining to other things.
So many
revolving around movies.
Yes, movies. We're going to be doing a bunch of fun stuff right here on the channel. If you are new to News and Views, well, welcome back. This is a program that Scott hosted with Jesse many moons ago. And I had the pleasure of being on the program as a guest before I joined the Flick and Reel fam. But we're bringing it back Saturday mornings around this time every Saturday.
If somebody really wants to dig through the archives, you can find a News and Views that involves you and I in a special type of trivia showdown.
You know, you give me flack for that all the time. I don't remember. I remember doing it, but I don't remember the questions or the outcome. Okay, I lied. I remember you besting me, but I don't remember the circumstances around it. Maybe I was tired that morning because I'm not a morning guy.
That being said, I believe it came down to like a sudden death type of overtime. But with that being said, also there was a hardcore Schmodown member on that same show that dominated both of us. So really, I beat you for second place, as though I dominated. We both got wiped across the floor. That was no good. But it was still a lot of fun, and we're back. News and Views is back. You know, we took a long hiatus as we were pumping out all kinds of other content, and I'm glad to be back with a new host, Anthony Lopez, and I'm glad to still be the co-host because it's far less work to be a co-host.
Yo, we're gonna have a great time on the program, but before we do anything on the program, because we do have a bunch of fun stuff that we have planned for this show and for subsequent programs, because we're going to be here every week, every Saturday, floating around at 8 a.m. Pacific time, 10 a.m. Central time, depending on where you're at in the country. But before we do that, make sure you go ahead and subscribe to the channel first, hit like while you're there. It really helps us out. Hit the bell for notifications every time we go live for videos just like this one, and leave a comment down below if you are watching after the fact. If you are watching now, like the folks in the chat, thank you so much. Garth McMurray, what's going on, Garth? There's a question
right here. I got it up on the screen for you.
Okay. Mime is money. Move on. Come on, move it. Morty the Mime movie trivia. What actor played Morty and who is this from? Oh God. Oh wow. I like that Garth asked for me to answer it. Damn. So, are you targeting me? Should I know that? Mine.
I think he just knows that I don't, which was easier to target you.
Morty the Mime. What the hell's Morty the Mime? See, Garth's gonna tell me, and I feel like I should know the answer to this question. I should. Damn, Garth, I don't know. But like I said, make sure you go ahead and like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and if you're watching live, make sure to please join the conversation, join the chat. We would love to hear your 2 cents. And if you're watching this after the fact, leave a comment. Let us know what you thought of the show, ideas for future programs. Let us know what you think of all the topics that we talk about on the show today. And Garth asked me because I suck in movie trivia. Thank you. Thank you, Garth. No hard feelings.
So that reminds me, there's a movie called The Silent Movie by Mel Brooks, classic movie, and in the movie no words are spoken except for one word is spoken, and it's the word no, and it's said by Marceau, who is a famous mime, and he's the only person to speak in the entire silent movie.
Irony. I like that.
That's a deep pull. Congratulations.
For those at home wondering, it's Billy Crystal from This Is Spinal Tap, and the mime waiter he's yelling at is played by Dana Carvey. See, Garth, I've never seen This Is Spinal Tap.
Oh, wow.
So I do love Billy Crystal and do love Dana Carvey, but I've never seen This Is Spinal Tap. So I'm sorry. That's my fault. It's my bad. Maybe one day we can do a little sum on the channel for This Is Spinal Tap. But before that, before we do any This Is Spinal Tap, we do want to talk about some of the news that's been happening in the last few months pertaining to the box office. I know this is something that Scott and I have been talking about the last couple weeks, and this is something that we wanted to mention up front right now. And the big elephant in the room, the big elephant in the box office is Avatar: The Way of Water, right? It's been the hot commodity, the hot topic since mid-December when it was released. And it is, I want to say, Scott, and correct me if I'm wrong, or the chat, correct me if I'm wrong, the fourth highest grossing movie of all time in about, what, 2 months?
Yeah, it's now at 2.1 billion worldwide.
It's insane.
And domestically, it's somewhere, it's close to 1 billion domestically as well.
That's mind-boggling.
The problem is part of that got rolled into 2022 statistics, and now we're in 2023, it's skewing the numbers a little bit. But yeah, it's over 2 billion total, which is incredible. And talking about the box office, nothing's been really close to it. Even last weekend, Puss in Boots was number 2, and it was still 6 million behind.
Yo, and shout out to Puss in Boots, because I feel like every time that I hear about new releases now, because January is always that dead month, and it was a great way for Avatar to rake in all that quiche, because Disney is waiting, and they're just sporadically putting out their big releases. Ant-Man comes out in a couple weeks, and that's the next big movie at the box office. But Avatar had little to no competition. I know Megan, the little horror flick that was running around. Is it a horror movie? The thriller horror movie?
I think it's a psychological thriller type of movie.
Right.
Less than a horror.
Very, very Child's Play-esque, right? And I know that made a lot of money in the box office in the meantime, but Avatar's just been dominating it. The Fox office, Garth, I love the ideas.
Well, we'll be changing this segment for next week. Holy mackerel!
And Garth,
right, we need a new banner. Let's go, Sean.
Yes,
make it happen.
We'll have to talk to producer extraordinaire Sean Wingblade or Jesse Swift. Shout out to Jesse Swift, who helped us out a ton with getting this show back up and running. I do want to credit Jesse where I can.
Talking about those top box office movies, Garth has a good point that Cameron is also re-releasing Titanic for a 25th anniversary so that he can continue to push it up. But then in 5 years, we'll have Endgame re-released to try and nudge it out. I feel like there needs to be an asterisk next to some of these things, because re-releasing and doing those things, like, it's kind of like the adjusted for inflation numbers, where Gone with the Wind still is one of the greatest to ever.
As far as I'm concerned, it'll be gone. Like, let's just adjust for inflation at this point. If we're just re-releasing a ton of flicks, then all right.
Well, and also when Titanic came out when I was in high school, it was $10 for a ticket or less than, and now you're talking for IMAX with the special sound and all the extra stuff. You're talking $20 a ticket plus sometimes.
Right.
And that's before popcorn. Like, going out on a date to the theater is ridiculous. Like,
am I the only one that prefers not to eat at the movie theater? Like, the second I get my ticket, I just go right by concessions. I don't even think about getting food. I do skip food often, but I am kind of a nostalgic about popcorn and a soda. Sure. But you have to budget that in, and I have 4 kids. We don't go to a movie with everybody because you're talking almost $150 to get tickets for 6 people into the theater. Yeah. I mean, it's cheaper to go out to dinner and just plainly buy the tickets or wait for streaming. And unfortunately, that's been an Achilles or a crutch for not seeing some movies recently, because I can't afford to take everyone to the theater for all of these things. It's gotten a little bit outrageous. But that's the nature of the beast now. But the box office, the numbers are skewed so heavily because of the cost of tickets, and with all the special screens, the way they make them in 3D or now the 4D 60 frames a second or whatever it is. You'll get there's gonna be 6D, IMAX.
Does it have Dolby?
All this crazy stuff, but I see more people popping up in the chat. Montyverse, what's going on? Montyverse, Megan slaps according to them. Yo, I gotta see these flicks. I haven't been to the movies in a minute, It's upsetting. It's very upsetting. I'm slacking on my end. And
No,
Allison, I see
well,
you and I love you.
the other thing is there's so much content. You can go to the theater to see these. It has to be a really big release.
Mhm.
Ant-Man will get me back out to the theater.
Totally. Yeah.
It not just because it's Marvel, but also because that movie looks amazing. And I feel like that's one of those things you have to see in the theater. Avatar was one you have to see in the theater just because the scale and the way it's created.
Mhm.
But there's a lot of the movies that are coming out that, like Megan, I don't have to see that in the theater to get the effect.
Sure.
Like jump scares and intensity can be built on a small screen.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But I do feel like because of the amount of content that's being thrown out, a lot of it going straight to streaming, and I know we'll be talking about some of that later,
Mhm.
you can bypass the theater for a lot of this stuff. Just
Exactly.
because there's so much of it. And so the numbers are skewed. And you nailed it. Avatar had no competition for 3 months.
Right. Because I mean, even in December, like, oh God, what was the other big release in December? You know, like we saw just utter dominance from Avatar on purpose. This is
Yeah.
purposefully done because A, Disney wasn't going to release another movie in that meantime, and B, no other studio was going to try and compete with Avatar, fully knowing that this will be one of the, you know, bigger flicks that audiences are going to go out in droves to see. But I can't fathom. Maybe it's because I think the first Avatar is incredibly overrated, but but in hindsight, like I got to give credit where credit's due. And James Cameron, even though if you ask um, one of our fellow flick and reelers, Alison Salamoni, about James Cameron, she might give you a different opinion on him. He makes big movies. Like folks know James Cameron's name, and they might not be able to tell you that he did other movies besides Avatar and Titanic, but I'll be damned if they haven't seen those movies or at least heard of them.
Yeah.
Because he's a household name for better or for worse. Like
Yeah,
that's
he
the
only
whole
puts
name of the
out
game.
he only puts out a couple movies. Like I think it's like 3 movies in the last 20 years. Um, and but every one of those has been number 1 at the box office and is on the worldwide top 5 all-time movie list.
Yeah.
I mean, but you can go back to the early 90s with Terminator 2, one of the most iconic, and that was a massive movie for a
That's
long
still
time.
maybe the best action movie I've ever seen.
Oh my gosh, it's so good. And
It rocks.
here's the crazy thing. That was from 1993 or something, 92 or 93. Might even been 91, but it was early 90s. Still stands up. Special effects stands up today. Is it perfect? No, but he used a lot of
No.
practical effects.
Yeah.
And the T-1000 looked amazing. Not to get way off topic, but that movie like blew my mind as a kid. Like liquid metal. Are you kidding me? We would run around like shoving like pieces of wood up our sleeve and be like knife and pretend like we could stab everybody because I was young back in the 90s ish.
Yeah.
But the not to belabor this idea on the box office, and especially because we know Avatar: The Way of Water has been dominating, will continue to dominate.
Mhm.
Aliens also, yeah, man, Garth, good memory. Cameron's got a lot of really good movies. The crazy thing is he doesn't have a lot of movies. It's just every one he makes seems to be really
It's
good.
an event, and that's
Yes.
why. And with that, I want to answer Monty's question in the chat before we go on to the next thing. Avatar's making all this money. Does anyone even like it? Out of all the people I've spoken to who have seen it, I haven't gotten anything but mediocrity. Do people even care? Like, look, folks like the masses, like I don't think James Cameron gives a shit about critics.
No.
It's all about the event movie, because like what you were saying, Scott, this dude doesn't have a large filmography, but within his filmography, these are big event tentpole movies. Because why else do you need to do anything if you're James Cameron? It's not like Spielberg, who dropped like bangers in back-to-back years, West Side Story and The Fabelmans, great movies, but they're not out here making billions of dollars in the box office.
Well, and Maddie, good call on The Abyss also. Abyss, one of my favorite sci-fi movies
Manny
ever.
Gunner.
Dude, such a good movie. And Michael Biehn he's awesome in that as the opposite Ed Harris. But James Cameron also innovates technologies that influence film in other ways. Like James Cameron is an innovator. Like he created new camera systems, or maybe he didn't invent them himself, but he pulled together all the top technologies to make an immersive, real world effect that is hard to duplicate. And so part of going to see James Cameron's movies in the theater is being part of what you said, the event. You're being part of the spectacle of seeing the most insane thing you've ever seen on a screen. Mm-hmm. He makes movies that are more immersive than any other movie.
Yeah.
With going, what is it, 60 frames a second for this, for Avatar, and doing, essentially a 4D type of movement with everything. I heard a number of people who don't generally have issue with motion sickness coming out saying, I felt nauseous. So part of that draw is the fact that his stories are not the greatest. Titanic was pretty good. It's a pretty good
I
story.
Love Titanic.
It's other than that it's 17 hours long.
Yeah.
Titanic is great. Mm-hmm. But Avatar 1, Avatar 2, the story is not what built that movie. The movie was built on special effects more than the story.
Yeah.
And that's okay. But going back, he hasn't competed. He will fall. Avatar: The Way of Water will fall off with Quantumania, or not Quantumania, but Quantumania.
That'll be the
it'll be the new.
We'll take the nice chunk out because this weekend, and we'll talk about it towards the end of the show. But Knock at the Cabin comes out this weekend. A shout out to 80 for Brady. Don't sleep on 80 for Brady. But I think this weekend it's gonna get a nice chunk taken out of it because we're getting some newer releases, some bigger. I shouldn't say 80 for Brady is a bigger anticipated release, but Knock at the Cabin is the newest M. Night Shyamalan movie. Talk about recognizable names.
I'm just hoping he's back to form because M. Night Shyamalan is all like he can either put out something amazing or something that you're just walk out going, I think he tried too hard, too many twists. And so often he has like 4 more twists than are necessary.
I promise one last question about box office and then we'll move on. Maddie Gunner, what's going on, Maddie? I miss you, dog. Do you guys think that the fact that his movies make billions of dollars hinders his ability to make anything but massive blockbuster movies? That's a fun question because dude's only done 3 movies since 97. As Garth points out in the chat, Titanic in 97, Avatar 09, Avatar Way of Water 2022.
I don't like that you just pointed out that 1997 was now, I guess, 25 years ago.
I'd like you to keep your opinion to yourself.
I'm going to go ahead and go take my Geritol. My body's giving up on me.
Yo, I cannot believe that James Cameron
I was
3 movies in my lifetime.
I was a junior in high school. No, 97, I would have been a sophomore, but either way.
Yo, I can't. I'm sorry.
Getting lots of pains.
You can't get mad at me. I'm sorry. I'm the younger one of the bunch.
I do think it's funny that Tom Brady, they made a movie 80 for Brady, and now he's almost 80 years old by the time that finally comes out.
He's like 46 or some shit. He's so
yeah. Well, 45, almost 46, because he played 23 seasons in the NFL. And had 737 touchdown passes, like insane statistics.
Shout out to Tom Brady, the GOAT. And the fact that he retired now, he can actually do press for 80 for Brady. How about that?
He got a bigger contract. Anyways, we were not here to talk about sports, but for broadcasting, he got a bigger contract for broadcasting than. Oh wow, Garth, are you okay? Somebody should check on Garth. He was 29 in 1997, and nobody can do that math anymore. But Tom Brady's getting paid more now as a broadcaster than he made in his entire career as in the NFL. His contract with Fox to do broadcasting is going to make him more money than his cumulative pay for his entire career. Which is insane.
Guys, just wait for the news and views after Tom Brady's first NFL broadcast. I cannot wait to talk about Brady's first game.
As though that has anything to do with movies.
Exactly. And Garth will be 55 in 2 months. Happy early birthday, Garth.
Yeah, happy early birthday.
Hell yeah.
You know what's funny? I'm going to say this to Garth as a word of encouragement. When I was 19, I thought 40 was old. And now that I'm in my 40s, I don't think 40 or even the idea of 50 really feels that old. So it's not that bad. And young people have no idea how fast that's going to creep up on you either.
If 40's old, like you guys are just making my mom somewhere's crying at the idea of 40 years old being old. She's 45. Yeah, nah, she already cries herself to sleep, and I think she's old. But it's besides the point. We're not here to talk about my mom. No, I love you, Mom.
But I will say, Chris, this could be your future haircut. Just
I'm already pushing my damn hairline.
Is that why the band is hiding the forehead where it's creeping?
I have a reverse widow's peak. When I have my hair grown out, like it's a whole thing. I'm not. You see it right here? You can see a little bit.
Hold on, I'm gonna do this and then tilt my head up to make it seem like I got a better hairline.
This is not the news and views that Jesse envisioned that we would bring back.
It's off the rails already.
So let's actually talk about some news now. So we have a few different topics wrangled up, and we're not going to talk about all of them. So I'll just read them off real quick, and then Scott, whatever tickles your fancy off rip, we'll just go from there, and we'll try to get through a couple of these. We'll see how we are on time. I know there's a big one that's in the title of the video. I promise you we'll talk about that one at some point. But King of the Hill is joining the list of shows that's getting revived, and Hulu, who is already in the business with Futurama, they're also picking up King of the Hill. We're getting a Michael Jackson biopic, and his nephew Jafar Jackson, I hope I'm not mispronouncing that, was cast as Michael in the movie called Michael. We're getting some more Bob Zemeckis de-age technology stuff with Robin Wright and Tom Hanks reuniting for another Bob Zemeckis flick.
Yep.
Amazon is they're doing something fun over there with a new Nike movie called Air about the recruitment of Michael Jordan that has Ben Affleck and Matt Damon included. And there's some fun stuff for the big game that is going on next weekend. But then the Gladiator sequel with Ridley Scott and Oscar nominee Paul Mescal. So Scott, what is out here tickling your fancy besides the one big, DC chapter 1? But besides that, what else is tickling your fancy?
Well, I'll say two things. One, you can't hear King of the Hill without wanting to go, damn it, Bobby.
Oh, it's good.
Them boys be out there whacking it in my tool shed. That's from when Hank Hill was on Beavis and Butthead, because that's how old I am. Damn it, Bobby. I used to be able to do a boomhauer too, but I'm going to leave that off. You guys can use the rest of that.
That's so rad.
But the other one is the Nike movie I was impressed by, especially because that's an Amazon Prime original.
Yes.
And it's meant to go on their streaming service, but they're doing a wide release, which we talked about before the show. Netflix last year tested that with Glass Onion, Knives Out film, and they did 600 theaters. Amazon is taking this almost to a full release, a wide release, 3,000 theaters nationwide, in order for this new Nike movie. And I love that it's talking about, the cast. Matt Damon is going to be playing Sonny Valero or Vaccaro, thank you. And then Phil Knight is being played by Ben Affleck, which always a great combination.
Yeah.
But Jordan's mother, and why did my brain just blank on it? Is Viola Davis. She's playing Jordan's mother, and I love Viola Davis is outstanding, but Matt Damon and Ben Affleck as a combo, when they team up, they do really well, both as writers, and on screen, and portraying these roles is something that I think will be very interesting to kind of show the behind the scenes of how that whole dynamic came together. Because Nike, as soon as Nike got linked with Jordan, Nike became a different company.
100%.
I mean, and now Nike is the global brand that it is because of Michael Jordan. But I would say that Jordan helped Nike, but Nike really helped Jordan as well. It was a cultural phenomenon.
It shot them both into the stratosphere.
Absolutely.
Within pop culture.
It was the perfect pairing. It was kind of, and at the same time, Jordan had Gatorade as well, and Gatorade became, the best sports sugar drink you could ever have. But I do like this, and Also, big thing with biopics. We've seen that this year with Elvis, the Viola Davis as
What, the Woman King?
The Woman King.
There's the Fablemans, the fictional biopic thing.
Yes. So these biopics always seem to do really well. And then this coming year, we're going to have, we'll have Michael Jackson's nephew, Jafar Jackson, playing Michael. Then we have this biopic with Matt Damon and Ben Affleck playing, portraying how Marvel got started, or how Nike got started. And then we'll have, a reprisal of the biopic of Bruce Wayne and how he saved a city with the sequel to Batman Part 2, because that's true, right?
That actually happened. Yes. In the city of Chicago, that they just renamed to Gotham. But
I have to hope that it did, because that gives me hope that I someday can become younger and a billionaire and build technologies to fight crime.
Just hopefully you don't share the same tragic origin story. But in regards to Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, right? This movie, Air, it's called. They're calling it Air. For those who don't know, like what Scott said, it's based off of Nike recruiting Michael Jordan in the 80s, like, who everybody knew was going to be this global superstar. You can just, like, if you're any type of sneakerhead or any type of, like, if you're ingrained in pop culture in any way, you know who Michael Jordan is, and you know how big his shoes were and his collaboration with Nike. And this whole movie is essentially his recruitment. The movie's not about Mike. The movie's about Nike and them recruiting Michael. And I love this team, Ben Affleck and Matt Damon together. The cast is nuts. I want to read off a couple other names. Viola Davis will be playing Michael's mother, Dolores. Jason Bateman, Marlon Wayans, and Chris Tucker are also part of this cast, which is it sounds like, I don't want to say a drama, because drama implies so many other things, but it's going to be the story that we haven't seen in a flick before. And I know with the popularity of The Last Dance that came out during the height of the pandemic in the summer of 2020, where everyone's faces, I feel like, were glued to the TV watching a 6-part documentary about Michael Jordan and how he was this prolific figure, not only in basketball, but globally around the world, in film, on TV, in multiple different sports. This guy was everywhere. And it all started with his play at North Carolina and the Nike deal. Like, that's all where, like, his superstardom lit up, and Nike has become the shoe brand, the athletic shoe ever since then. And that was almost 40 years ago since Michael showed up in the NBA. So it's the story that I feel like definitely I shouldn't say needs, that I would love to see on the screen, and the team behind it sounds super rad. But like what you mentioned, Scott, the interesting point is how Amazon's pumping this out.
Yes.
It's not just another movie that they're putting on their streamer. It's a movie that's getting an actual nationwide release. It's getting 3,000 plus screens. And then after its little theatrical window, it's going to go to Amazon Prime, where it's going to live. That's great. But we're no stranger to streaming movies getting put in the movie theater at bigger screens. You just mentioned Glass Onion. Netflix has done it. I feel like Netflix does it with Regal Theaters all the time. They put their movies in there. I've heard of other flicks going to the theater.
But we also know that streaming services are now putting out Oscar quality material, or at least buying them to promote them. All Quiet on the Western Front, nominated for Best Picture, and that was a Netflix, or at least released through Netflix. And a small release into actual theaters. And so you can see really high quality movies making it really high quality movies coming out of streaming services.
Right.
And I do like the idea that they're going to partner that with doing them both, and that they're holding it off. They're going to put it in the theater first and then release to stream after. So it's not a that was a failure for HBO Max, and during COVID and all the stuff they were experimenting with. Same day release of theater and streaming, bomb theater. Because why would I go and spend $80 if I can sit at home with the same 15 that I've already paid for? Disney did it differently, where they said, okay, you got to pay $20 to watch it early.
Right.
But
that still didn't prove to be the moneymaker they probably thought it was going to be.
No, Mulan and a couple other ones kind of just never got traction. But
plus, Mulan wasn't good, so that didn't help.
That didn't have a distinct
in my
impact
opinion.
In that movie. No. It's not just you. The people spoke by not seeing that,
and I'm glad
seeing it once, and that was it.
Right.
A lot of the box office numbers are repeat viewings, right? We know that.
Yes.
Hardcore fans go back and re-see a movie. Yeah. That is a massive part of the business. And when nobody goes and sees it again, that's a problem.
I'm glad you mentioned the same day releases with like HBO. Like the Suicide Squad did that. And if you go look at the Suicide Squad's box office numbers, they're not good. Like it's not a good number. I want to say it technically bombed at the box office, but the HBO Max plays make up for it in their eyes. And maybe that contributed to why James Gunn's now, the co-CEO of DC Studios. But with how they're doing this, where it's in the theater, you can go see it at the movies, but then later it's going to be exclusively on the platform. They're not essentially breaking new ground. Like we've been talking about how many different movies have gone to theater the same day or whenever day, but with this specifically, it's getting a wide release everywhere, a month, months before they even put it on the streamer. And that's the part that's a little bit different about this case. Plus, this movie sounds pretty damn rad, if you ask me. Like I'm very much looking forward to this.
Glass Onion had 600 theaters. It has 3,000. That's 5-fold improvement, right? They're multiplied by 5.
And Glass Onion made some good money while it was and it was only in there for a week.
Now, I will say, there's a movie called Prefontaine about the runner Steve Prefontaine, where they talk about Phil Knight because he was a track coach and about his origin of making shoes. And that movie has a little bit of that story intermixed with the story of Steve Prefontaine. I love that this is really focusing on the basketball portion because Nike started as a track shoe company and then bridged the gap over into basketball. They've attempted to do many other things, partnering with Tiger Woods to suddenly make golf equipment. But that would have never happened without the Jordan contract and without Jordan being who Jordan is. And so I like the idea that they're showing this part of the company and how they transitioned from being track centric when they started to then branching over to cover other sports, other types of things. And I think it'll be really, I think of all the things that are listed for this upcoming year, that one really stands out as something that's going to be, or upcoming new information. Did they give a release date for that?
Here, I can double check for you real fast.
No. Oh, yes, it has to be soon because they're paying for huge advertising during the Super Bowl.
Yes.
They put $7 million or something like that into Super Bowl ads.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Into the big game ads.
Into the big game.
Mute that last thing. The big game ads.
April 5th is how this is going to go down.
So that's pretty soon.
Yes, it's in a couple months, and we have not seen anything. No. Unless we got a trailer somewhere, and we over here at Flick and Reel just missed it, because this is going to be, I think, once we see it during the big game, that a ton of folks are going to be intrigued, not only at the idea of, oh, hey, it's about Mike, oh, wait, it's about Nike, but the team behind it, how they're releasing it, like it'll be accessible to more folks, because let's be real, how many people really have Amazon Prime to watch stuff? I mean, so do I. But I'm just like, compare it to the Netflixes of the world.
Oh yeah,
Maxes.
Amazon Prime is about a lot more than just streaming.
Exactly, and
that's just like part of what it is.
Like movies like this that are more accessible, because this is like what Maddie Gunn was saying in the chat. Like Nike is probably the shoe, and Michael is probably the athlete for a whole generation of people. So I think this is gonna be pretty rad. But I want to cross over to one thing about the Michael Jackson biopic. If we can talk about Mike, not like that. Let's just talk about the movie. Michael, Antoine Fuqua is doing this movie, and it's
proven
not
director.
Only, yes, like Antoine Fuqua, a great resume, but the big kicker is who's playing Michael. That was the big question. You're making a Michael Jackson movie. with the estate behind this movie. So you get to do the songs, but also the estate's doing this movie. So guys, don't expect anything too crazy coming from this Michael Jackson movie.
No,
but
if you do
who's Mike, and you get his nephew to do it.
So this could be a big breaking out role for his nephew Jafar, if done properly. Something tells me they're not going to, like, with Antoine Fuqua as the director, this is not going to be some flop movie. It's going to be very well done. Hold on.
Are you looking at?
Yeah. It's actually his nephew, not his son.
We will not see any of the bad stuff. No. Anything. There's no way any of the allegations, any of the reports, nothing from any of that.
I'm wondering if this is if this story is gonna talk about more of the transition of him coming away from Jackson 5 and stepping into his own early in his career when he became a phenom solo.
Oh, yeah.
And I hope they focus on that part of his career, because similar to Michael Jordan's just meteoric rise, when Michael Jackson came out and went solo in the late 70s, early 80s, it was this wild thing. Like he was gold. Everything he released was platinum. Like he could not, he couldn't miss. Almost every song was, absolutely. And not only that, the albums, every album that came out had many good songs. And for those people who used to buy full CDs, nothing sucked worse than buying a CD only to find out that it had one good track, the one they played on the radio, and the other 14 songs were garbage. Michael Jackson was like, it was bankable that most of this is good music.
Off the Wall and Thriller are perfect records.
Yep.
Like, honestly. And I know, like, as I'm right by my records and I'm looking at my Thriller one as we speak. But the big question is, like what you said, Scott, what exactly do you cover in a Michael Jackson movie? Because you get his nephew to play him. Like, Jafar, from what I've seen, is a younger dude. He's Jermaine Jackson, if I read this correctly. He's Jermaine Jackson's youngest son. The second youngest, excuse me. No, I lied. He's a younger looking dude. And this is probably going to be like what you said, Jackson 5 going into Off the Wall. We're going to see a lot of the Quincy Jones stuff, him working with that and becoming this bigger star than he already was. And maybe we'll see some of the struggles that he had as a child phenom, right, in the music world, and then becoming his own thing as an adult or as a young adult, going into, as what Maddie Gunner put in the chat, like Off the Wall, maybe Thriller, and then we'll see where the story goes. Because the later you get, that's where things get a little dicey and what you want to tell in a Michael Jackson story.
He ended up being a very polarizing figure.
Yes. Because
a lot of the allegations against him, some of his behavior later on, like when he held his child off the balcony, some of the weird stuff he did. Of course, fame will do crazy things to people and cause them to behave in ways that they wouldn't normally act. But, I've never had to live with press badgering me round the clock all year long. All the plastic surgery, Garth. Yeah, there's a lot of parts of the story. And you touched on it too with Elvis, Bohemian Rhapsody with Freddie Mercury. When they're telling the story, what parts do they keep? What parts do they hold out? Are they telling
you sugarcoat a little bit?
Yeah, gloss over to make them not look as bad as they are. The fact that he had a ranch with a fairground on it, Neverland Ranch,
zoo and all this. Like, with what do you want?
Monkeys and giraffes, and
that's the big question.
It's just it's one of those things where we'll have to see, but it will create controversy the day it comes out, because there are people, no matter what it is, if it's about Michael Jackson, it's taboo. It's awful. To the point there are a lot of people who won't even listen to his music anymore. And that's challenging, because you can't separate, if you're doing a full bio, you can't separate the music stuff from the individual stuff. You can look at different aspects of his career, but I will be curious to see how they portray him and what parts they choose to focus on and what parts they choose not to, because that's a very hot button topic. Some of the things that happen near the end, and then, you know, not to get into too much of that stuff, but how they portray that. Like, are they going to try and make him look like he was just the hero guy and not all the other stuff?
Right. And the big kicker with the estate being involved, aside from them actually being able to use the music, which is great, that's I feel like in biopics about artists or about musicians, if you're not able to use their music, I feel like there's something wrong. I'm not saying it's bad, but it's not the same vibe. And if you can tell a Michael Jackson story, I want to hear, you know, PYT. I want to hear Thriller, the title track, not even just the record. Like, I want to hear all
Billie
this
Jean, Smooth Criminal.
Right. Like, we can go all the way from Off the Wall to Butter or to Invincible. Like, there's so many different things. Like, but I'm very curious to see how the story's told. And the person who's writing this, John Logan, he wrote Gladiator, Skyfall, and Spectre, amongst other things. So there's some good movies that he's written, but also, and yeah, Dirty Diana. I'm a big fan of Black and White off of Dangerous too. But besides the point, I'm wondering with these states being directly involved in this, because not only are they letting them use the music, one of their own is Michael in the movie. You're not going to portray Michael in a bad light. And if they do, it's a hell of a choice. And I'm eager to see how they do it.
Or if they do, they're going to use the abuse he suffered as a child as a catalyst.
But do you even do that? Do you try to make the
try to bridge that gap
of the Jacksons look like that? You know, like
it's a lot of speculation.
And it's a lot of.
It makes me curious to see how they're going to do it. Yeah. And are you going to use flashbacks to his childhood?
Yeah.
Because his dad is notoriously a monster.
Yes. It's a bunch of wait and see with how this movie is going to be done. But needless to say, I'm eager. I'm very, very eager. And yes, ABC by the Jackson 5, another great record. The Love You Save? There's some bunch of great Michael Jackson songs that they're going to be able to use in this movie. So for the sake of time, I feel like we should address the elephant in the room.
DC.
There was this big, because this might take us into the end of the show, guys.
Yep.
So James Gunn on Tuesday had there was this big announcement. We're getting DC news. What does that mean? What exactly were we getting from James Gunn on that Tuesday, the last month of January? And Scott, we got 10 new DCU and Elseworlds projects that we are going to run down, because we have this little graphic that we pulled up, made by our friends at Heroes Reforged. Shout out Adam Plavik, I believe he put the
images together.
Yes, he put the little thingy together. I'm put on screen now. How about that?
So a couple things I want to note about this. For all those out there that were holding out hope, crossing your fingers and your toes that somehow the Snyderverse was coming back, it's dead. Period.
It's dead.
And
no more Snyderverse.
I love that at the very start it talks about Shazam, The Flash, Blue Beetle, and Aquaman, and then it restarts. Universe resets, and apparently The Flash will be the catalyst for the time travel to reset the universe, kind of like Days of Future Past for X-Men, where at the end suddenly they're back in a different timeline and they could reset everything and do whatever they want.
We're getting a Flashpoint in the Flash movie.
Yes, and so they're basically wiping the slate clean. I also loved the other thing that I really, really loved about this is they made a distinction between the DC. Now it's not the DC EU, it's the DCU, the DC universe, and elsewhere. So the Joker movies, which the sequel to the Joker will be coming, Teen Titans Go, Superman and Lois, and then the Batman, Matt Reeves is the Batman, and the Batman Part 2 are in the elsewhere. And so we have DC Universe and DC Elsewhere dividing what branch we're in. So we can separate where all these timelines fall. But after those 4 movies with Shazam, Flash, Blue Beetle, and Aquaman, it's a clean slate. The biggest one to jump out in all those is the fact that James Gunn himself is writing Superman Legacy, which will be the launch off movie. That's going to be the one to really, after the movies that are already in the can that we know are coming with Elsewhere and with the old universe. Yep. After that, we get to jump into Superman Legacy, which will kick off a whole new thing for DC. And there's a long 10-year plan. We remember what happened with Warner and what they tried to do catching up to Marvel like overnight. Yep. Failure, right? They rushed, they told part stories, they chopped movies up, and it was trash. Mm-hmm. Not trash. There's some really good stuff in there, but they overdid it too quick, bringing people together instead of a lot of good standalone characters.
Trash. Not all the products were bad.
Yes,
it's how they went about it was bad.
But within all that, can you throw the graphic up one more time?
Totally. Yeah.
I just want to say, the Batman Part 2 is one of the things I'm most excited about in all of this.
Oh yeah.
Shazam, Fury of the Gods, but then the Lanterns. Oh man, I'm a Green Lantern guy. And so knowing there's a show as the Green Lantern Corps, like a detective.
It's True Detective with Green Lanterns. Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart, specifically named by James Gunn. There's a
that
bunch
gets me
to
so jacked up. The question is, who are they casting as Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart? Oh, and we'll be speculating on that as it comes or when the announcements do come. But the fact that Waller bringing Viola Davis back, or reprising that same role, but they're telling the different stories because she's played that role, right? Behind the scenes with the Suicide Squads. And so now that they're keeping her going, especially since James Gunn kind of owns the Suicide Squad with the reboot of that, which, by the way, was way better than the original Suicide Squad. Oh, yeah. I want Kilowog too. Absolutely, Garth. There is... I want Sinestro. I'm still waiting for...
Am I the only one jonesing for Atrocitus? I want to see some Red Lanterns. I want to get I want to get crazy. I want Larfleeze. Like I want to get nuts. Let's get crazy with this lantern stuff.
So I talked to my son about this with the Lantern show, and he goes, I still liked Ryan Reynolds as Green Lantern, and I know that can be taboo to say. I love the Green Lantern movie with Ryan Reynolds. I know that's not for everybody. I really like that movie. I like Ryan Reynolds, but I really like Mark Strong as Sinestro, and the teaser at the end of that movie with Mark Strong putting on the ring of fear and turning into Yellow Lantern. Oh my gosh. And then that never came to fruition. Still bothers me today.
And it only came out 2 years before Man of Steel. So back what
could have been. But again, DC had nobody coordinating any of the work. They weren't thinking comprehensively or cohesively with the universe. They didn't figure that out until after Marvel was just pummeling them at the box office and then going, we should try and make better movies.
Right. And just to give a little bit of a rundown, so like big shout out to the first movie that's after the universe reset, Blue Beetle, that will be getting in August of this year. Aquaman, The Lost Kingdom, that's on Christmas of this year as well. Creature Commandos, that sounds super interesting in my eyes. I know people have been educating me on Twitter of what that is. It's an animated series. As Scott mentioned, Waller, Superman Legacy, Lanterns, The Authority, another deep cut DC IP that's being adapted to film. Swamp Thing, Jesse Swift, our fellow flick and reeler. That's his most anticipated project. Swamp Thing, horror-esque, maybe lean into the horror a little bit of the side of the DC universe. Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow being adapted for film. The live-action Booster Gold series, which I'll talk about that in a minute. Batman Brave and the Bold, we're going to get that. We're getting Damian Wayne. We're getting our first Robin as a kid, and presumably he's a child, in live action, which is super rad. Paradise Lost, a little Wonder Woman prequel that's going to be a live action show. And as Scott mentioned with the Elseworlds, Joker Part 2, that's coming out next year. 2025 will also see the release of Batman Part 2. Notice that it's blue, because I know this isn't the official DC, but I have theories. I've been talking about this on the channel for months. And then Teen Titans Go will still remain on Cartoon Network, and then Superman and Lois on the CW. Superman and Lois, great show, by the way, for those who aren't watching it. But for me, I am jonesing. I've been talking about Jaime Reyes and Blue Beetle for months. ever since we found out that we're getting that movie, that it's happening, and it didn't get canned. For the love of God, I was terrified. But I love this news. And we've gotten some other subsequent pieces of news since this whole slate happened on Tuesday. James Mangold is being courted to be the director of Swamp Thing. For those who don't know, James Mangold, director of Logan, Ford versus Ferrari, and the upcoming Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny that comes out later this summer, which I am jonesing, pun intended, to see. But there's a bunch of other good things to look forward to. We're getting animated stuff, we're getting live action stuff, and it's all interconnected. That's the thing. Everything on this, with the exception of Elseworlds, is interconnected.
I love that they said that they're going to use the same cast people. So whoever they cast as Superman will voice Superman in the animated.
Yes.
They're going to have the same actors voicing the roles for all the different aspects of it, other than elsewhere. But anything in the main DC universe. And I love that the first chapter, chapter 1, is Gods and Monsters. And so we have this awesome kind of, with the reset. And I'm sorry, I said that backwards earlier, that the universe reset falls between Flash and Blue Beetle. But are Blue Beetle and Aquaman, does that mean Momoa is going to carry forward? Or...
It's a big question.
We don't know. But I did love that when James Gunn was talking about this, he said that he loved the new Flash movie.
Yeah, a lot of praise coming from the new Flash.
I have a feeling because of you're bringing everything together. We know that we're going to have Affleck as well as Michael Keaton both reprising Batman in that movie, and that where we get the Flashpoint paradox. That movie could have been amazing, but everything fell apart. And then with all of Ezra Miller's issues that he's had recently, hopefully he's getting all that stuff squared away. But this movie could have been huge, and now it's almost, they've held it. And at this point, they invested so much money, I feel like they've got to drop it, but they're doing it in a way that says, okay, with the timeline reset, we can move on. We can fully release and let go of all these old characters. The shame is, how awesome would it have been to have Michael Keaton sticking around longer for old man Bruce Wayne, Batman Beyond style? Man, that would have been so awesome. But
there were so many things. I mean, and that's the issue with, like, we were teased with so much that it's almost difficult for us to like there was that, like, we could have had that, it could have been that. But with Ezra Miller and like everything that they had going on, like it's interesting that there's a lot of praise still, and they've said nothing but nice things about Ezra's performance as Barry Allen and as the Flash. And James Gunn has gone on record saying that while they may not agree with a lot of the ideologies that recently, like Zachary Levi has tweeted about, or Ezra Miller's actions and what they're doing in their personal life, that's not James Gunn's call, at least for now. We'll see how that goes in regards to bringing them back later. But as of right now, in the projects that we got, it's the Flash is the launching point for the new DCU. No more extended garbage, as you mentioned earlier, Scott. It's ironclad. And I'm so glad you mentioned the point of retaining the same actors, right? Because that's going to be across, from my understanding, from across all mediums. Where if we get, give me hypothetically, who the hell? So say Ryan Reynolds comes back to play Green Lantern, right? Hypothetically, in this, and he's Hal Jordan again. He'll be Hal Jordan in every DC project going forward.
Video games,
right? Like
animated, all of it.
He'll voice the character until we're told otherwise. And James Gunn's been nothing but transparent about this, and he's been getting so much flack for not necessarily like, oh, why'd you cancel that thing like Doom Patrol or Titans? Like, he's like, dog, that wasn't me. But now that we get this whole universe, and again, shout out to our buddies at Heroes Reforged for putting this graphic together, but we're getting a Lanterns detective show. We're getting this Authority movie that's going to be this larger, it'll be the Eternals of DC. From my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong in the chat or afterwards in the comments if I got that wrong. The Authority, it's a huge blind spot for me. But Booster Gold sounds like super, like that could be awfully tragic or very funny or both, depending on how you want to view the character. But I mean, I'd be damned if I didn't. Batman Brave and the Bold. You're telling me we're getting a Batman movie, right? That's interconnected in the DC universe, that is actually like a part of a plan, like a solid plan. Like that is what gets me excited. And because of the choice of Damian Wayne, confirmed by James Gunn, we're getting Damian Wayne, whether you like it or not. We're getting Damian, the fourth Robin, I believe. Again, there's a ton of Robins, but that implies that Dick Grayson's older, Jason Todd, if they want
Tim Drake,
that implies, at least to me, in my headcanon, that they're all around. They've all been Robin already. So we might get Nightwing later. We might get Red Hood later. We might tackle, Red Robin later. Who knows? But I love the idea of expanding the Bat family, as James Gunn mentioned in his little video that was spread all over the DC stuff. This is just the beginning. We can do so much with the Bat family, and doing the father-son dynamic of Bruce and Damian. While Damian's not my favorite Robin, I love a Robin inclusion in a live-action Batman movie where he's a kid, an assassin no less, in Damian, which proves to be it's not just another Batman. It's not like everyone loves Dick Grayson, everyone loves Jason Todd, and for those, I feel like Tim Drake always gets the shaft, but he's a very, very cool character. Damian, though, is probably the most interesting of the bunch to throw into a movie off rip to start your universe.
Oh, yeah.
I love that. I love it.
I love that James Gunn said that he was a little assassin, specifically. And it's almost as though Dick Grayson wanted to be like Bruce Wayne or like Batman and be really have that same moral code. And by the time it gets down to Damian Wayne is like, I'm going to grow up in spite of you. Like, you could be more productive if you actually killed these people and did some of the nasty stuff. And so I'm excited for all of that. I am curious though, what happened to the Batgirl movie?
So they've actually talked about that since, right? Because that's been the big hot button question ever since.
I still want to see Brendan Fraser as Firefly.
And it turns out, right? And thank you, Garth, for the mention in the chat. Stephanie Brown. Brown. I'm gonna put that in my brain. I always forget Stephanie. I shouldn't. But I guess they were talking about that, and I want to say, who the hell was it? I should have pulled it, but I didn't. Apparently, the movie was unwatchable. Apparently, it just wasn't great.
Put it out anyways.
But yeah, and it's funny, there's this guy at my job, he calls all the time asking how do I see this Batgirl movie? And I'm like, dude, this isn't that type of news station. I can't tell you. Dude, if there's a way for me to show everybody, I would. I want to see it too. I would love to see Leslie Grace as Barbara Gordon. I love that. That would make me very happy. But apparently,
hold on a second.
So garbage.
That's a bold statement right there.
Yeah, apparently the Batgirl movie was so bad that they stopped it so it wouldn't hurt people's careers. Apparently, and I forget. I gotta pull up that quote, and I wanna mention who said it, because I'm not just talking out of my cheeks. I need to. I want to make sure. Okay, here we go. Yeah, Peter Safran said that the movie was not releasable. That he said that, and that's you can credit the AV Club. The Huffington Post put something about it. There's a bunch of that's a thing he said in an interview, that the movie was not releasable, whatever that means.
I'm glad they finally got to a point of cohesiveness with Peter Safran and James Gunn, solidifying that they're taking this all forward and running it as co-CEOs of DC. It's just a shame that so many things that could have been how do you make a movie that's with Warner and DC and all the stuff they have and the cast they had put together? How do you turn out a crap product so bad that you can't even go back and fix it? Was it not worth reshoots? Was the story that bad? And if the story was that bad, who greenlit the story? It boggles the mind.
Man. Well, at this point, like especially with them just rebooting everything, it would make sense to still put Batgirl in this, especially if Damien's the Robin, because that implies so much. But
Yeah.
it might not imply anything. They might twist the universe in their own way to the point where Damien's the first Robin. Who knows? I doubt they'll do it.
No, because they talked about the Bat family. That means there has to be. You're gonna have Nightwing out there, and
right. We'll go to we'll probably.
I really do hope we have an Under the Red Hood storyline intermixed somewhere.
Jason's still like off the grid or something, and we bring Jason back, like we just tweak the story a little bit to include Damien directly. Oh, that'd be so cool.
Or who are we getting as the Joker for that?
Do we have a Joker for that?
Do we get to see him killing Tim Drake?
Oh,
like is that why Damien's Robin now? Like let's go. Are we digging deep into these stories? I think it would be awesome. I'm curious to see how they're going to play it all out.
Yeah, and there, as Garth mentions in the chat, that there are Damian Wayne Robin runs where Dick Grayson's actually Batman, where Bruce is off the grid. So like there are different ways you can go about this, but they're going to put Bruce in the suit. Come on. The thing that throws me, one of the few things, little things that throws me, is that we're going to have two concurrent Batmans.
Yeah,
like I
do like that they're differentiating between DC and DCU and DC elsewhere. So there is a differentiation portion. But man, I would love to see Robert Pattinson in the regular DCU. But at the same time, I'm just glad we're getting a sequel because that movie was so freaking awesome that I'm just glad that because they're resetting, they didn't drop this. It was mine and yours, number one last year. The movie was so good.
We loved Batman on News and Views.
Yes. Big fans.
Batman Part 1. Yeah, because the second movie is called The Batman Part 2.
Yep.
Love that.
I'm excited for that. I'm just glad there's continuity. I know a lot of people are hardcore Marvel fans, and as a kid, I wasn't Marvel as a whole. I was more of a Spider-Man and DC. My only Marvel link was really Spider-Man as a kid for comics.
That was the case for probably a ton of folks.
Yeah, and I liked Fantastic Four a little bit, but that has not panned out well either. And so for me, really, DC with Batman and Superman were where I was at. Of course, back in the 80s and the early 90s with Christopher Reeves and Michael Keaton, you had literally the definitive Batman and Superman to this day, even though I think some other people have taken the mantle quite well. I loved Henry Cavill as Superman, equal to Christopher Reeves. And I really liked Ben Affleck as Batman, physically imposing. He was outstanding. I really, really like Robert Pattinson. So, sorry, Christopher Reeve. I always throw the S on there. But I love some of those characters were so great for so long, and those actors who played those roles. I'm just grateful that we're now getting versions of them that are up to par,
Yes.
And that there are people behind the scenes at DC actually working to make it all work, as opposed to after the fact trying to draw weird threads in. It's kind of like throwing in the first Shazam movie the semi-tease of Henry Cavill in the background, and then after Black Adam bringing Henry Cavill in and then firing him a month later. This
news is so, I didn't even think of the Black Adam part of all this, because Dwayne got the shaft from DC. They told him, no, we're not gonna do more Black Adam, at least for now. Especially with the projects that they have lined up. It's a bummer, and I see what you're saying in regards to like what could have been with this DC extended universe, the Snyderverse, whatever. What could have been.
No, but I'm glad that they're restarting. I'm glad if they're going to restart clean, do what they're doing.
Yes.
Just make sure you have somebody working at this for a while. The worst thing that would happen is if James Gunn left and somebody stepped in and then tried to pick up the pieces of what James Gunn already laid out. And
there
Peter
has to be some type of predecessor or some type of successor already set. Like, I guarantee there are people working with James Gunn, working with Peter Safran, especially James on the creative side, to where in case he had to step away, there's probably someone who can just take the reins and go without there being this massive overhaul at DC's doing.
Well, they have it lined out for 10 years and then at least covered for a while, but it's like J.J. Abrams doing The Force Awakens, then handing it over to Rian Johnson for The Last Jedi, then having to pick it back up at the end and fix all these random storylines that were dropped.
One story, but from different storytellers, and there was no type of cohesion, or no type of, I shouldn't say cohesion, no type of to where they're like, hey, yo, like, you killed Luke Skywalker at the end of The Last Jedi. Spoiler alert. Like, it's a bunch of little things like that.
Spoiler alert for a movie 7 years old.
Right, but
hold on a second. This right here.
In the Waller project, I want to see him with her deleting contacts on her phone, and one is Cavill's Superman. Yo, oh, that's something I want to mention too. I'm assuming, and I could be wrong, and I hope James Gunn says something about this. If he did and I missed it, there's no Peacemaker season 2. There's no mention of Peacemaker. Waller, we're picking up from the events of Peacemaker, but there's no mention of John Cena and his role as Peacemaker going forward. We don't know for sure. It wasn't mentioned in the thing. At least it was, but it wasn't directly involving, hey, we're doing another season of Peacemaker confirmed. We kind of got that months ago, but I can't take that word for it. If anything that happened a few months ago, because now we got the concurrent timeline. Well, we have a set idea of what's going to happen. There's no Peacemaker. He might pop up in Waller. He might, but there's no Peacemaker season 2 anywhere.
Yeah, if Waller is
Teen
picking
Titans
up
Go.
If Waller is picking up that story, then perhaps we don't have necessarily Peacemaker or Suicide Squad. We have some variation of where they're bringing all those things together under one umbrella, just titled Waller, with Viola Davis kind of carrying that portion of the universe forward. Do we need another season of Peacemaker? Well, it'd be awesome. It was pretty good. Do we need another Suicide Squad? No, not necessarily. We've kind of seen where that all goes. So why not just roll it all up and nicely package it under Waller and call it good?
Right, and fingers crossed. Garth mentioned that the Peacemaker cast, hopefully in its entirety, there's a ton of funny folks, ton of great folks. That show was so good. If y'all haven't seen Peacemaker, I don't know where its role is now in the DCU, but it's still worth the watch. It's such a good story, and it's very. Speaking of, from a conversation we had 50 minutes ago, T2 Robert Patrick is very good in that show. Playing
Peacemaker's dad,
super villain. He's a very, very funny character, and he brings some great stuff out of John Cena. I think some of John's better acting is in that show, and I love John Cena. So hell yeah, fingers crossed. But a couple other quick things in regards to this before we do recommendations and get the heck out of here. Superman and Lois. I think Peter Safran said that we're going to get at least another season or 2 out of that before we call it quits on the extended Arrowverse, CW verse, because the Flash is ending this year. That Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow seems like a lot of fun. Do we keep the same Supergirl from the Flash? We don't know for sure, because we know she's in that movie. Blue Beetle, I'll talk about that movie more, especially as we get more stuff. The second we get a trailer and we get maybe it's at the big game, who knows? But just know, guys, I'm gonna lose my mind on this program the second we get a chance. Booster Gold again. If y'all haven't seen the Booster Gold episode from Justice League Unlimited, that's just an idea of what this show could be. Like, it could be very fun, yet very tragic story for a guy from the future who's so lame, he goes back in time to be the best superhero ever, and he still can't do it. It's so fascinating, so interesting that he can rock like that. I love it so much. Yeah, I know Superman and Lois aren't part of the Arrowverse, but they were there. They did the Crisis shit, and John Diggle's still in it, so whatever. But it's there. It's not. It's there, but it's not. And I know they're doing another version of Lex, but that's a whole different conversation for a different day. But Scott, before we do recommendations, anything else pops up to you on this? I know that. Are you excited for that Joker musical movie at all? Does that intrigue you?
I think I will be after I see a trailer.
Did you like the first one?
The first one is incredible. What a wild ride that movie was. You know, not your textbook superhero movie. It is a psychological thriller. You're riding the roller coaster with a guy with schizophrenia, and it was Joaquin Phoenix deserved Best Actor for that role.
He acted his ass off in that movie. 100%.
Oh my gosh, so good.
Yes.
But it's one of those things you're like, I can't even compute how we even like. The fact that somebody thought those ideas up and put that all together blows my mind, and then was able to execute it the way they did was outstanding. I love the idea that that the sequel will be some form of a musical.
Lady Gaga, yep.
Which cool. Like I get it.
Garth put it in the chat, Lady Haha, which I think is very funny. Very funny.
I think it's going to be really good, just because I know the people associated with it, and you can look at a track record of people's success and say this is trustworthy, right? Not all things are trustworthy, but the people tied to this project give you confidence.
1,000%. No, totally. The first Joker, I will. This is a weird thing that I'll say about the Joker. I will acknowledge that it's a good movie. I will never watch it again. I think that it was very heavy. It was a theater experience unlike any other that I've had. Watching it with a group of people, especially as the third act panned out, I was just taken aback by what I was watching, and
so much of it is uncomfortable.
Very, very.
You're right. Watching it again, it almost feels like, do I want to put myself through that?
Exactly.
Do I need this?
It's heavy. It's very dark, and it's not like the dark that we loved in the Batman. It's a different kind of energy. And I will acknowledge it's a good movie, and that Joaquin Phoenix acted his ass off in it, totally. But I will never willingly pop it back on. If I'm here with my roommates and I'm like, hey guys, let's watch a movie. Let's watch Joker. No, that's never gonna happen. But again, it's a good flick, and I will definitely see part 2 when it comes out, because again, it's a musical.
It makes me think of Hot Shots Part 2. Yeah. But I'm sure this won't be a parody of other action movies.
1,000%, and they'll probably stylize the shit out of it. But there's a ton.
Completely.
There's a ton here to look forward to, and we could have dedicated the whole show talking about each project bit for bit. But I know we're gonna talk about Shazam, especially as we get there. Same thing with the Flash, and every single one of these projects. We get more news on it. We're gonna cover it right here on News and Views every damn Saturday.
Yes.
But before we get out of here, Scott, we are going to do some recommendations, because we love giving the folks something to look out for this weekend, some stuff to watch. And Scott, do you have anything on the docket for you this weekend on your Saturday?
Well, no, because last night I finished it up. There's a show called The Climb. It's a rock climbing show. It's got 8 episodes. Jason Momoa helps host it with Chris Sharma, who is a rock climbing legend. And they take 10 contestants and they challenge them to rock climbing, like different types of rock climbing apparatus and events. And it's an elimination type of show, but it's fantastic. And the views they use in it are really intense, because they use drone footage. And if you ever watched something like Free Solo or The Alpinist, where they show the over-the-top views of people climbing these massive rocks, it will give you some anxiety to watch. But it's really, really well done. It's a fun show, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I won't give any spoilers on who wins, but it kept you glued to it all the way through all the episodes. And at the end, my wife was watching the last couple of episodes with me, and she felt like, I feel bad because I want all of them to win and nobody to win. And yes, Jason Momoa, before becoming Khal Drogo or Aquaman, it was and is a hardcore rock climber. Always has been. And so he helped put on this show. He's an avid rock climber. It's what he used to do when he was younger. But I do like the idea of him right here.
Not getting the rock.
But Jason Momoa is an avid rock climber, and they actually show him on the show rock climbing a bunch of these really challenging places where they're taking the contestants to go, which is cool. And ladies, if you want to watch it, or gentlemen, you want to watch it, you see a lot of shirtless Jason Momoa. Enjoy.
Sold. You should have led with that, Scott. Yeah,
but it's good as a whole, and it was a really enjoyable show and intense. It was one at the end. My wife was like, "I feel bad that the person lost. I'm happy that the one won, but I didn't want the other person to lose either." I'm like, "See, this is what happens with these shows. They get you emotionally tied up with all these characters, all these people."
Right.
But it was good. It was really good. So The Climb, it's on HBO Max. Definitely worth the view.
Word. I mentioned at the top there are a couple movies coming out this weekend. One of them that I might actually have to go see, and the other one is Knock at the Cabin. So Knock at the Cabin, the newest M. Night Shyamalan flick, already, and like my buddies that I chat with all the time, I've slowly been converting them as cinephiles and push them to go to the movies, go see this flick, go see that flick, and Knock at the Cabin is one that intrigues me because I recently watched Old. I want to say it was the last M. Night movie, and that movie sucks. I did not like it.
I told you, you never know what you're getting with M. Night Shyamalan. Like,
right.
It's either the greatest thing or the worst thing.
For him, like, because what was before that? Was it Glass? God, I didn't like that one either. No, I didn't like that one.
That's the problem. Is you're either going to get, you're going to get Sixth Sense or Unbreakable, or Avatar: The Last Airbender, and then
oh god. And I forgot who said it earlier in the chat. I want to say it was Monty, in the Montyverse. They're like, "Oh, yo, I want my refund for Last Airbender." I didn't watch that till I got in college, and even with multiple adult beverages, that movie's still bad. No fun was had watching that movie. But Knock at the Cabin, already pretty divisive amongst critics who already got to see it. And yes, Garth, M. Night's track record is not great.
Yes,
a lot
he
of the
started off on
scattered.
fire, and the expectation levels were really high. And then when he started producing subpar movies, people went, "Well, what happened?" And the problem was, I believe he was trying to make or outdo himself, and he began making movies that are almost like a caricature of the other movies that he made, and trying to live up to this idea and adding too many twists, too much stuff.
But he wrote Stuart Little, Scott, so we got to give him a pass at some point. I'm going to keep throwing I'm going to keep throwing out the Stuart Little card until I can't use it anymore. And maybe when I go see Knock at the Cabin, maybe that's when I run out. But I hear nothing but good things about Dave Bautista, who's been in the news lately. That guy's such
an underrated actor.
I got in, not an argument, but in a disagreement with someone recently about the best pro wrestler turned actor, and how I think it's Dave, and there's no competition. No offense to The Rock, no offense to John Cena, Roddy Piper, Hulk Hogan, whoever. It's Dave Bautista, and it's not close.
I'll say this: some of them have had more success than Dave Bautista so far, but as far as quality of actor, Bautista's got the better acting chops.
And look at his filmography.
John Cena's got great comedy. That's the place he's underrated. Is he's really funny, and his deadpan straight man comedy, where he says the horrible thing in a normal way, is really spot on. But Dave Bautista's got really good acting chops. Like he does a really good job of getting into a role. The way he portrayed Drax in Dune, playing blanking on his character's name. Really intense character. He's not a lot of screen time. We'll get more in the next movie, but really well done. And he does a good job of morphing into a character a lot better than people give him credit for. And totally. And I think he's actually but he intentionally spent time learning to act.
Yep. And
not just being the physical presence on screen, but really trying to learn how to act in a role. So yeah, I'm with you 100%. Dave Bautista's way up there. And
Knock at the Cabin, apparently, for better or for worse, is another feather in his cap for that whole conversation that maybe we'll have to revisit once we get more Cena and Rock flicks. But Knock at the Cabin comes out this weekend. 80 for Brady. I am so intrigued at how this does in the box office. 80 for Brady, for those who don't know, about 4 women who want to go to the Super Bowl, 4 older women who want to go to the Super Bowl to go see Tom Brady because they love Tom Brady. Cross-country road trip comedy, and hijinks ensue. Looks like a bunch of, but especially with the news of Tom Brady retiring lately, maybe that's a PR ploy to get more people to go see this damn movie that he's in. Justice for Mr. Kennedy, Marine 7. Mr. Ken. Love the Mr. Kennedy reference. I was not expecting that on my Saturday morning. But and I want to mention this or two things, two shows I've been watching. I'm obsessed with Abbott Elementary. I'm going to say this until the show wraps its second season. Abbott Elementary is one of the better shows that's come out in the last few years, in my opinion. Great workplace comedy at a public school in Philadelphia. For those who haven't seen it, I believe the first season is streaming on HBO Max and Hulu. It might still be on HBO Max, but I know it's on Hulu. And The Flash wraps up its final season, the final season of the Arrowverse proper. And the first episode is this upcoming, I want to say Wednesday. It's this upcoming week if I could pull it up real fast. Yeah, it's Wednesday. So it's wrapping up its final season. It's a condensed 13-episode season. And we already got a bunch of surprises told for us that we're going to get Stephen Amell back to play the Green Arrow. How? I don't know. But he's going to be there amongst other fun surprises that are on the internet somewhere. But The Flash is a show I'll be checking out. And hopefully I can say good things about it when the time comes on this program.
Yes.
But Abbott Elementary, it's a show I will not shut up about. Go see it. It's winning a bunch of awards, a ton of Emmys, Golden Globes, SAG Awards, all this crazy stuff. The whole show deserves a bunch more press than it's getting, even though they got renewed for more seasons. Thank God. But Abbott Elementary, great show. Wholesome program. Very wholesome program.
That's good to hear too.
Yeah,
there's not enough of that.
It's sweet, and it's not like malicious. It's very explicit in how it just wants people to be good to one another. Because it's at an elementary school, and they're in Philly. It's a bunch of little black kids, and they talk about, like there's two white teachers at the school, and it's not afraid to be black in that sense. But I love it. I love that show. It's great, and first season is damn near flawless, but the second season also is pretty damn fun. I love it. I love that show. But Scott, unless we are missing anything, I think we're good to go.
Well, excited for next Saturday's news and views because we'll be the day before the big game. A lot of times,
the big game, the Superb
there will be
Owl.
a lot of the Superb Owl will be out, and the with that we know a lot of the trailers for the game come the day before online. They release them early online, so we might have a lot to talk about as far as new trailers. New information, and then we're less than 2 weeks now from Ant-Man and Wasp: Quantumania, which will be hopefully the thing that dethrones Avatar. It will clearly win that weekend. I don't foresee Avatar. The previous whole weekend only did 16 million. I have a feeling that Quantumania will open the 150 to 200 range, just because of what they're building up for it, and I'm hopeful that they release something special during the big game next weekend, but we know that a lot of stuff's coming. And so in this next week, by next Saturday, we'll have a lot more news for you guys Saturday morning. And we stuck very tight to our goal of 30 minutes for this episode.
Yes. And we appreciate all the folks who joined us in the live chat, who will join us after the fact. Thank you all a ton. This first show, again, we want to find our footing. And the show's just going to evolve over time. Like we want to bring the show back, and we missed it. And I, for one, am very happy it's back. And I cannot wait to see where the show goes going forward. We will be doing a ton more news. We will be doing reviews on this program. Like what Scott mentioned, Ant-Man's coming out. And I'm pretty sure we're going to talk about some Ant-Man when the time comes on this program.
Yes.
And there's a ton of other fun stuff on the channel that if you already don't know is there, go subscribe. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the like button while you're here. And hit the bell for notifications every time we go live, or for videos every time we post. Tons of reactions, tons of videos where we are just expressing how much we love movies. You've never seen it. It's every single week on the channel. You get the speakeasies. You get the reactions. You get news and views. Saturday mornings, 8 a.m. Pacific.
We're back,
10 a.m.
and
Central.
it officially happened today.
It's here. It happened. We did it. Now, to be a little transparent, Scott and I talked about this show's probably be 45 minutes to an hour. We just reached 1 hour and 25 minutes.
Here's the deal: is I think you and I both know how much we like to talk and go on
Yes.
rants about specific topics.
Yes.
We'll learn to rein it in, but we also like
Eventually.
to play off of your guys' feedback when you guys talk to us through the chat. We want to respond to that and be here present with you guys at the same time. And
Damn
so,
right.
yeah, I think we nailed it. I think we nailed our time frame. Exactly.
100%. And big
We'll leave
love.
it to Sean to crop this down to 30 minutes.
Just take the good parts. Just take all the breaths out, and I think we'll be okay. A big love to Sean and Jesse for helping us out in the pre-show. I know we had a bunch of issues and we started late this morning, but we had a bunch of help, and we are eternally grateful. And although Allison was a little tied up this morning, she was more than enthusiastic to bring this show back. And It was a whole team effort to bring news and views back to the channel. And we're here. And we're going to be here for a very long while. So for Scott Fox right there, my name happens to be Chris Anthony Lopez. And, Flickin' Fanatics, we're happy to be back on Saturday morning. So see y'all next time. Be good. Peace.